Gubernatorial candidate Wes Moore visiting West Baltimore today. If you read his New York Times best-selling book, you may think he's from here. But his history is at the center of a controversy unfolding as Moore looks to be Maryland's next governor. And this afternoon, I pressed Moore about the information as he is requesting a criminal investigation into who circulated a dossier with some of the details about his past. The New York Times best-selling book, The Other Wes Moore, written by this Wes Moore, a Democrat running for Maryland governor. The book about two boys with the same name who grew up fatherless in similar Baltimore neighborhoods. The other Moore in prison for life, found guilty on the shooting death of an off-duty Baltimore County police officer. Reading the book, it would appear Moore is from the streets of Charm City. But this anonymous dossier circulating among political insiders calls those Baltimore roots claims into question. Fox 45 News reviewing the details, and it matches some of the information from our own investigation. But we're unable to find any evidence candidate Wes Moore being born or growing up in Charm City. Our research finding Moore was born in Washington, D.C., briefly living in Tacoma Park, then moving to New York City at a young age, attending the prestigious Riverdale Country School in the Bronx, then attending a military academy in Pennsylvania. And at this point in Moore's life, his mother was living in Pasadena, more than 15 miles away from Baltimore City. Moore attended Johns Hopkins University for college.
This is my home.
Friday, Wes Moore in the city again for a Good Friday service.
This has been the place that supported me.
Briefly answering questions about his history.
Literally, I write on page 7 of my book about where I was born, and I write on page 37 of my book about my family transitioning from Maryland up to New York.
But flip to page 166, Moore's words claiming he lived in the city, writing, quote, "In West Baltimore, we lived like kings compared to this."
Where did you live when you lived in Baltimore City?
Yeah, so we lived over in Waverly, and so when I first got a chance to live here full time in Baltimore.
Which was when?
It wasn't until I was in college.
That's when he was a student at Hopkins. But there are several examples of speaking engagements and hosts introducing Moore as a Baltimore native dating back years.
These were areas that we knew. These were blocks that we knew.
You picked Johns Hopkins for undergrad.
I did.
Why?
Part of it was a chance for me to go back home to Baltimore.
Two kids with the same name were born blocks apart in the same decaying city within a year of each other.
How can we continue to build up a place that is not just, my hometown, but you can understand my story without understanding Baltimore?
Do you think you misled the public at all?
I do not think I misled the public at all.
Moore's campaign is asking the State Board of Elections and State Prosecutor's Office to launch a criminal investigation into that dossier that's circulating, calling it an illegal attack, claiming the document was compiled by a rival candidate. In a statement to Fox 45 News, the Moore campaign says the dossier, quote, neatly aligns with blatant dog whistles and other mischaracterizations of Wes's childhood. The State Prosecutor's Office says it cannot confirm or deny any investigation. While Moore has answered some of the questions today, there are still some unanswered questions. In his book, he says he lived in West Baltimore, but it's not clear where or when he did. And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you expect elected officials to be honest with the public? You can weigh in by heading to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Difference between us, it's a stark difference. And when you look at the reason he won't debate, it's because he's a phony. There are so many things in his book that are completely false. If you look at the book, he claims he was raised in Baltimore City, but sir, you weren't there until you were 34.